This is the week 3 update of The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. This week is about recovering a sense of power. The week was kind of a blur, to be honest. I did do all 7 days of the morning pages, which was pretty impressive. Some days were more rushed than others. But as it's becoming apparent with the morning pages, you kind of just have ebbs and flows in terms of creativity and like creative days where you're writing about things you're thinking of or ideas you can develop, and then other days it just evolves into to-do lists and chores, and that's kind of the point, I suppose, is to just be using the pages as an outlet to get things out. There was a part of this week's chapter that kind of just mentioned using the pages as a place to rest. So obviously athletes and things like that, you're not going to be working out all the time. You do need rest and recovery days. So it's kind of, she likens it to that in a sense, that the pages are a way to kind of rest your mind, get some things out and sort of clear out the cobwebs, I suppose. There's nothing really that stuck out that are like revelations from the morning pages. Again, they're not really for anyone else or to share, but yeah, there's some interesting things that happened there this week that I wouldn't have uncovered if I hadn't have been writing the pages, of course. But I'll just go through, I suppose, some of the elements from this chapter because there was a lot going on. It kind of all ties together in terms of recovering a sense of power, as I just alluded to. And then I'll quickly go through some of the tasks that I did for the week and the artist state that I did. So I guess the first part about this chapter was kind of talking about anger as a fuel, I suppose. So I enjoy taking my notes in my margins, and I tried to do a bit better job of summarizing my interpretation and of the chapter and the things that resonated with me. So yeah, the first kind of part of the chapter is about anger, and it can kind of be used as a catalyst or a fuel for change. So basically, when there's anger involved with things, generally there's a wanting or a willingness of something to change. And the anger itself isn't the action, but it's kind of a catalyst for thinking about things differently or having new ideas to solve the thing that made the anger arise. That's kind of what I took away from that. So I suppose being angry is not the worst thing if there's a positive to come out of it. Doesn't always have to be, with malice and things like that. It can just be born from frustration almost. The section after anger is about what she calls synchronicity, which is essentially the same as serendipity. In summary, this whole part's kind of talking about, it's piggybacking on last week's topic about being open to ideas and kind of having your antennae or your ears open, and you're basically being attentive and paying attention and being alert to different things in the world that might stimulate a bit of creativity or creative thought. So the main thing here is being open to new ideas and inspiration all the time, kind of having like an active attention span, if that makes sense. So just ideally not allowing yourself to like shut that down and just always kind of being actively looking around and not being closed off to sights and sounds and vibrations and conversations, like anything basically. Ideally, once you just open yourself up to receiving more of that sort of stuff, the creativity and the ideas start rushing to you. And that's what I've found for the last 2 weeks. I'm just getting non-stop ideas for literally everything. It is quite overwhelming. And the point that she's trying to make here is once you do start recognizing those things coming to you, once you start receiving the things, and it sounds a bit weird, but I suppose it's just more like getting more inspiration and creativity just kind of sporadically just coming to you. It's kind of hard to describe, I suppose. But basically, once those feelings and that momentum starts happening, don't discount it as luck, basically. It's your work paying off. So that's kind of a long-winded way of saying be open to new ideas, new inspiration, and don't discount it and kind of write it off as luck or whatever, because if you're looking for it and paying attention and being open to it, and it does happen, then part of that was your responsibility and your doing. So following on from that, I guess there's this part, I mean, I wasn't going to read it, but I suppose I may as well. I have an arrow pointing towards it for a reason, so it must be important. At the end of this sort of section, it says, we like to pretend it is hard to follow our heart's dreams. The truth is, it is difficult to avoid walking through the many doors that will open. So it's basically saying it's way more painful to not take that shot, or not walk through the door and not try the thing, or not chase your dream, essentially. And then it says, turn aside your dream and it will come back to you. So then I just made some notes saying, your dream's kind of always going to be there, right? If it keeps recurring, and it will, there is no point in running from it. On top of that, running from everything else, because if you're running from your dream, like what else are you running from? That shadow or that feeling will follow you everywhere, to the highs, to the lows. So keep it satiated and by the wayside for safekeeping. Keep feeding it, keep opening new doors. So basically, whatever your dream is, I mean, we have dozens of dreams through our lifetimes. Just whatever you're into at the moment, just keep feeding it. Don't kind of ignore it, I suppose. Don't keep it in the dark. There's just some more notes here saying you can already see the results showing up in regards to the synchronicity. Like just watching TV shows and just getting flooded with ideas of my own things I could be doing, different websites and apps I could be building just based on a random thought or a random problem I have. And I feel like I have these kind of ideas from time to time, but they're coming in tenfold now. It is really a lot, and it's going to be interesting how I figure out a way to silence a lot of that and just focusing on the 2 or 3 things that I'm most interested in at the time, or at any given moment. And just saving these ideas for safekeeping for later, because there's not enough time in the day. And I suppose this is one of the reasons why I did one of the previous tasks. I think it was in week 1 and week 2, doing your imaginary lives, is because I guess people like me that have like this creative bone want to flex it in 12 different lanes. And sometimes that's for the better, sometimes that's for the worse, because you're just trying to do too many things at once and you don't really get a level of mastery that some people would if they did just one thing for a decade or 2. But yeah, the task of doing all your imaginary lives is to get you to think outside the box and to see that things are possible. You don't have to do like the one thing. So that's encouraging to revisit some of the previous tasks. The third part after growth and synchronicity is about shame. And I guess it's kind of more about the resistance of not doing things and not taking a chance on yourself and not being creative and not putting things out there. Kind of similar to Stephen Pressfield's War of Art, in terms of kind of reviewing or viewing resistance as like just basically an enemy you have to overcome and battle all the time. Kind of personifying resistance in that sense. And I just wrote, it is common for artists to lose interest nearing the completion of a project, which is part of what she's writing here. You kind of detach yourself at the 11th hour to avoid the shame or scrutiny that you may face if you publish the thing. So it's kind of about overcoming shame, allowing yourself to look a little bit foolish, but there's no like shame. It's just not being shameful for publishing things, I suppose. And I mean, anyone that's got a creative block probably has some element of shame there in some capacity. There's a whole section about growth. It's kind of repetitive stuff in a sense. I think I've touched on it in week 1 or 2. It's kind of just about nurturing the inner child, the whole purpose of the 12-week plan. So there's nothing very new there. Actually, before I talk about the task, I'll talk about the art estate this week. So I went on the street photography walk through Sydney City. So it took about 3 hours. I think I did 20,000 steps from Central Station down to the Botanical Gardens, around the Opera House. And yeah, just took out the Olympus Pen F film camera, pretty new to it, and went through about 2 rolls. So it took about maybe 100 shots because it's a half frame camera. And yeah, it was really fun. It was very different taking photos out in public and having just like a camera out on display. And that's, I guess, why a lot of these tasks and these chapters and things are beneficial to kind of work through, because then you try and do like artistic things in the real world, and it's different to when you're just doing them in your basement or in your studio at home. So yeah, just having your camera out around your neck, not really knowing what you're doing adds a level of like self-doubt, but I mean, you kind of got to overcome that, and that's the purpose of doing all these art estates and creative acts and things. But it's just so funny because everyone's got mobile phones with cameras, and as soon as you have one like out, it's you feel different. Even though everyone else has a camera anyway, it's kind of bizarre. But yeah, the first half of the walk was pretty chill. It's just along the water. It was more just landscape type of shots, which are fine. There's not that much to capture. You're just really looking for colors and composition lines and things. But then once I came around the back towards the city a bit more, where all the action was happening, hustle and bustle and movement and transport, that's when it was way more exciting. You're kind of waiting for an interesting moment to appear that won't appear ever again. And they're the shots that really got me energized and excited. Just, yeah, simple things that wouldn't exist if you weren't walking past that point at an exact moment when the other person that you're taking a photo of is doing a particular thing for 1 second. There's a split moment where it's just, yeah, you have a chance to capture it, and if you nail it, it's just amazing. So that was really rewarding and energizing, and that was a lot of fun. But it comes with its own complications. You're out in public, people that don't want their photos taken, it's on film, you can't delete it in front of them, so that adds a whole lot of other shame and other problems as well. But yeah, that was a really fun experiment. I'll get those. I sent the film off today to get developed, so that'll be cool to look back on. And in terms of the tasks this week, so one of them is list 5 people you admire, list 5 people you secretly admire. So I'm not going to list them all. I mean, you can see who I follow on social media, and you can probably guess half of them anyway. But I thought it'd be interesting to kind of break down the similarities between them, with the help of ChatGPT, of course. So basically, yeah, just looking what parts of their personality I resonate with, and then out of the 10 people that I've added here, how frequent is that trait? And it was pretty obvious why I gravitate to certain people. So I'll run through them because it's just an interesting experiment. So the first one is bold creativity. This was 10 out of 10 of the people. And I just wrote, they express themselves in ways that stand out, whether through art, business, or branding. Their work is original, impactful, and resonates with others. Number 2 is independent or contrarian thinking. This was 8 out of 10. They carve their own path by questioning norms, taking risks, and rejecting conventional wisdom, something that I do and I appreciate from others. Number 3 is relentless work ethic. That's pretty obvious, 9 out of 10. Number 4 is magnetic presence. So 8 out of 10 of the people here naturally draw people in through confidence, energy, and storytelling, making a lasting impact. Number 5 is fearless execution. That's pretty obvious. They make bold decisions, move forward without overthinking. Number 6 was storytelling mastery. So they know how to tell a good story, but they also know how to craft their own narrative in a sense and shape how they're perceived in terms of how they do things. So that was interesting. And then the final one was authentic connection, which it kind of ties in with a lot of the other ones as well, but it's more or less just staying true to yourself. So yeah, they're 10 people I admire, and I guess the 10 of the 7 common traits within them. Another one was 5 traits you liked in yourself growing up as a child. So I listened to whatever music I wanted to, didn't really care what others thought. I was always kind of a little bit outside of what the peer group was generally listening to. So not afraid of being a little bit different. Number 2, I embraced being a bit of an outsider or black sheep. So kind of the same mentality. Number 3, I didn't need to be the center of attention. Similar trend. Number 4, I was constantly curious about technology and digital trends and internet trends. So just kind of finger on the pulse. And number 5 was self-motivated. So kind of just self-taught, autodidactic, and self-motivated, kind of just moving at my own speed. And and learning and doing the things that I kind of wanted at my own pace. The final task is just looking at some of your habits. Many of them may interfere with your self-nurturing and cause shame. Some of the oddest things are self-destructive. And it has a list of habits here that can be detrimental or, blocking the creative self. And a lot of these I don't do. I've kind of cut a lot of them out in the last 3 to 4 years since working for myself. I don't really have time to do them in terms of drinking and partying and watching TV and just like kind of wasting evenings and stuff. I don't really do any of that. The stuff that I do in terms of bad habits nowadays are more losing time, losing patience, losing focus on the task at hand just by like digital distractions, as opposed to, I guess, like the previous generation's vices, I suppose, of, eating pizza, drinking, smoking, watching TV, like just like not like all those sort of behavioral things. So yeah, my subtle foes would be social media scrolling. And I guess the reason I do that is just for a quick dopamine hit and a bit of an escape from stress or creative blocks. Just looking at what other people are doing, or even just trying to look for something mildly entertaining or creative just to like get out of the mundane nature of whatever I'm up to. So that is one hurdle or one bad habit. Another one, not staying hydrated, and that's just creating other effects like poor sleep and fogginess and just tiredness in general. So just staying hydrated is like my biggest thing. My camera right now is on my water bottle, and I probably need to drink it. And I've actually created another barrier to drinking my water by having my camera on my water bottle. And number 3 is secluding myself to get the work done. So yeah, one of the bad habits is kind of allowing the deep focus and uninterrupted work sessions to dominate the workday or work week, and it kind of isolates me and reinforces kind of the loneliness of being a solopreneur. And yeah, it's just kind of harder to like break out of that when you've been locked into that all the time. So those are some things that like, I guess they are destructive in a sense, but they're just slowly decaying, kind of death by 1,000 cut type of habits. So that's pretty much it for week 3. And week 4, it's actually Monday, and I've already started. And there is basically a no content or no consumption week. So no reading, no movies or anything. So we'll see what happens this week. I'll see you guys next week for week 4.